Curiosity and intelligence, how are they related? Well, openest experience would be the factor of personality in which in the Big Five model for which curiosity is actually a facet. And yes, that correlates with IQ at about 0.3 or 0.4. So there is an association there, but you'd be amazed at how many highly intelligent people there are who are completely incurious. They don't care about things around them. They're very good at problem solving, but they can't actually bring themselves to be interested enough in ideas for the sake of ideas essentially. You tend to find a lot of those people in business, unfortunately. What about Mensa? Those are a different kind of people. Isaac Asimov, the famous science fiction writer, he reported in a preface to one of his books many years ago in the 60s. He scored high enough to get into Mensa, which is not that high to be honest, 135, so 2 and a bit sigma basically above the mean. But he managed to qualify for Mensa, and he went to one meeting and just said, well, I am not really interested in having anything more to do with these people, because they are brain proud. This is the term he used for them. They are brain proud, and they don't actually have accomplishments per se, they are just very proud of their IQ scores. They derive an intrinsic pecking order and an intrinsic sense of worth from having this IQ score rather than having applied it to actually a furtherance of human knowledge. So, he said on that basis, I will have nothing to do with them. What was that guy called, the neuropsychologist? Was his name publishes a lot. He looks at religion and a lot. The god Hammett. Michael Persinger, that's his name. And, well, he's obviously a very clever guy, utterly obsessive. I mean, he does nothing other than work. He's not married, and as I understand it, he's just obsessive. One of the things he commented on is that the people that tend to end up working at his lab doing what I would personally argue is quite fascinating and boundary-pushing research, they're not necessarily the people that get the best grades at their degree, but they're highly creative. They have this ideal combination of intelligence and creativity. And one of the things that you find with these geniuses, okay, they have high IQ normally, but it's the creative dimension to their character, the contrarian, if you like, that's very important. So Francis Crick, for example, was rejected from Oxford and Cambridge and went to the University of London and got a 2-1. Isaac Newton almost failed his degree. His degree was done then by an oral examination, and it had to go to a second round because he performed so badly that he almost failed his degree. So this idea that IQ, or at least performance IQ, is the be-all and end-all, as is evidenced by the fact that the correlation between IQ and earnings 0.3, IQ and education 0.5, and you get these people that have very high IQ that, as you say, are just not curious about anything. They just like sodding about, playing chess and card games. And then others that want to make loads of money, but they're not very curious, not very creative. And it's the innovators are the ones that have the optimum IQ plus this kind of personality. That's the smart faction, that's the people that get things done. That's the geniuses or the semi-geniuses. The theory called Emergenic, which was developed by David Lykken, Lykken, who was a very famous behavior geneticist who worked with Tom Bouchard over at the University of Minnesota. The interesting thing about him is that he was also, I think, a borderline genius or quasi-genius. What he did was he came up with this idea that there are these ways of combining traits in ways that give you not a sum of the boost per unit allele of trait. So it's not like having 2 copies of this variant makes you twice as smart as having 1 copy of a variant. Having 3 copies makes you 3 times as smart, that sort of linear dose dependency. He argued that for some traits, what you have instead is you have a multiplicative relationship. So 1 copy of the allele gives you a certain level of a trait, having 2 copies of the allele gives you 4 times the level of the trait, having 3 copies of the allele gives you maybe 18 times. It's sort of some geometric scaling relationship. What he argued was you could measure this for certain rare traits like extreme creativity, leadership. He gave those as 2 examples. And the way to measure these is to compare the ratio of the correlation between MZ and DZ twins, so this is monozygotic and dizygotic twins, so twins that share 100% of their genes in common and fraternal twins who share 50 of their genes in common are not really twins. So basically, what you have is if you look at the correlation between the traits among individuals who share 50% of their genes, say it's 0.2. Among the correlation among individuals who share 100% of their genes, let's say 0.4. So you've got an approximate doubling of the power right in the case of a normal trait, where having double the number of genes gives you 2 times the amount of the trait. Well, for traits like leadership, what Lykken was finding was there might be a 0.2 association between the DZ twins, but among the MZ twins there might be a 0.8 association. In other words, having double the number of alleles gives you massively more in terms of levels of the trait.